You'd think lying in a hospital bed, pale as a ghost with an 4 in your arm, would be the moment your parents finally look at you and say, "We're here for you." But for me, it was just another reminder that I was the shadow in my own family. My name's Daniel. I'm 29, the responsible kid, the one who gets things done, doesn't cause trouble, and doesn't expect much in return. My younger brother, Ryan, on the other hand, has always been the golden child. The one who could flunk a class and somehow get applauded for trying. The one who turned every mistake into a performance, and my parents always clapped the loudest. Growing up, I learned to stop expecting fairness. Birthday gifts. Ryan's were bigger. Holidays. He was the star. Even when I landed a decent job, bought my own car, and never asked my parents for a dime, it wasn't enough to tilt the scales. Still, I figured, whatever. I'd built a quiet life, and I told myself I didn't need their validation. That illusion cracked wide open the day my appendix decided to turn against me. It started like a stomach ache, sharp and sudden. I brushed it off, assuming it was something I ate. But by midnight, the pain was unbearable. I was doubled over on the floor, sweating and shaking. A friend rushed me to the ER, and within minutes the doctor said what I already feared: emergency appendectomy. I needed surgery. Soon. When my parents arrived, I was still in a hospital gown, hooked up to monitors, trying to breathe through waves of pain. I thought maybe, just maybe, seeing me like that would break through whatever invisible wall always kept them from treating me like I mattered. "Daniel!" my mom gasped, rushing to the side of the bed. For a brief moment, I felt relief. Maybe this time would be different. But then she immediately turned, her eyes darting past me. "Oh no, Ryan," she said softly, touching his shoulder. "Are you cold? Do you need a blanket?" I blinked. Ryan was sitting in the visitor's chair, perfectly fine, scrolling his phone. He shrugged. "Kinda chilly, yeah." Within seconds, my dad was fiddling with the thermostat, and my mom was asking the nurse for extra pillows, for Ryan. I lay there, clutching my stomach, the pain tearing through me, watching the ridiculous scene unfold. Excuse me," the nurse said gently, pointing at me. "The patient is Daniel. He's the one about to go into surgery." "Oh, of course," Mom replied with a nervous laugh. "But Ryan doesn't do well in hospitals. We just want to make sure he's comfortable while he waits." Her words slammed into me harder than the cramps in my gut. I was the one under a surgeon's knife, but somehow my brother's comfort in the waiting room was their top priority. The nurse gave me a quick look, something like pity mixed with disbelief, before continuing her prep. And in that moment, I realized, I wasn't just sick. I was invisible. The nurse wheeled me down the hallway toward pre-op, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, every bump in the floor making my stomach scream. My parents trailed behind, but instead of holding my hand or whispering reassurance, they hovered around Ryan, who walked like he owned the place. "Ryan, sweetheart," Mom whispered urgently, "are you sure you're okay with the smell? Hospitals always smell so sterile." Ryan wrinkled his nose dramatically, like he'd just walked into a garbage dump. "Yeah, it's gross. Can we get, like, air freshener or something?" Dad chuckled as if Ryan had just cracked the funniest joke in the world. "We'll see what we can do, buddy." I wanted to laugh, except I was biting my lip to keep from screaming. I was the one facing anesthesia, scalpels, and the terrifying thought of not waking up, but the spotlight still shone brightly on Ryan, as always. When we reached the prep area, a nurse pulled the curtain around my bed. "Only one visitor at a time," she said firmly. "We need to get him ready for surgery." Finally, I thought. Maybe now I'd get a moment of care, A moment where my parents remembered I was the one whose appendix could burst any minute. "I'll stay with him," I croaked, looking at my mom. I wanted her face to be the last one I saw before they wheeled me away. But she hesitated. Her eyes flicked to Ryan, who was fiddling with his hoodie strings, looking annoyed at the restriction. "Ryan doesn't like being left alone," she said softly, almost apologetically. The nurse frowned. "Your son is the one having surgery. He needs support right now." Of course," Mom said quickly, but she still looked torn, as if leaving Ryan alone in a perfectly safe waiting area was somehow crueler than abandoning her son on an operating table. Finally, Dad sighed. "Honey, I'll stay with Daniel. You stay with Ryan. That way he won't get anxious." Anxious? My vision blurred, not from the morphine drip, but from the sheer absurdity. My parents were divvying themselves up not based on who was about to go under the knife, but based on who couldn't sit alone with a vending machine for 30 minutes. As the nurse helped me change into a gown, I stared at the ceiling, blinking back hot, bitter tears. I shouldn't have been surprised. This was just the natural end of a lifetime of favoritism. Still, lying there, stripped down to paper-thin fabric and fear, the truth cut deeper than any scalpel could. When the anesthesiologist came in, clipboard in hand, he gave me a warm smile. "We'll take good care of you," he said. Then he glanced at the empty chair beside my bed. "Anyone staying with you until we wheel you in?" I swallowed hard. "No," I whispered. "Apparently, my brother doesn't like being alone." The anesthesiologist's smile faltered. For a split second, he looked at me the way you'd look at a child left behind in a crowded store. And then he quietly patted my arm. "We've got you," he said. It was the first time that night I felt like someone actually saw me. The last thing I remember before the anesthesia pulled me under was the sterile smell of the mask and the anesthesiologist's voice, calm and steady. "Count back from 10, Daniel." 10, 9, 8, and then nothing. When I woke up, the world was blurry, my throat raw from the breathing tube, my stomach aching like someone had stuffed fire inside. The clock on the wall told me hours had passed. My hand twitched weakly, searching for someone familiar. Maybe Mom. Maybe Dad. Anyone. Instead, the first face I saw was Ryan's. Not sitting at my bedside. Not holding my hand. No, he was sprawled across the visitor's chair, feet propped up on the hospital floor, snoring. An empty snack wrapper crinkled in his lap. I croaked. "Mom." Ryan jolted awake, blinking at me like I'd interrupted his nap. "Oh, you're up. Cool." He yawned, stretched, and immediately pulled out his phone. My chest tightened, not from the surgery, but from the emptiness of that moment. I scanned the room, searching for my parents. Where are they? Ryan didn't even look up. Cafeteria. Mom said the food here is terrible, but she found some soup that doesn't taste like socks. He scrolled lazily, smirking. They'll be back when they're done eating. I stared at him, my mind foggy, my body still trembling from anesthesia. My parents had missed the moment I opened my eyes after surgery, the moment I needed them most, because they were off making sure Ryan got food he liked. A nurse walked in, checking my vitals. She smiled gently. "How are we feeling?" "Like garbage," I muttered. Before I could ask about complications or next steps, Ryan cut in. "Hey, do you know if the Wi-Fi here is free? The signal's trash." The nurse paused, blinking at him. Then she turned back to me. "Your parents should be here soon." They arrived a few minutes later, Mom carrying a tray of soup, Dad with a soda in his hand, both walking straight to Ryan. "Here you go, sweetie," Mom said, setting the tray down in front of him. I know how picky you are about food. Ryan grinned. Finally. I couldn't hold it in anymore. My voice cracked through the haze of exhaustion. I just had surgery. And you're bringing him soup. The room went silent. Ryan froze with a spoon halfway to his mouth. Mom blinked, like she'd just been caught in headlights. Dad cleared his throat. Daniel, don't start, he said softly, like I was a child throwing a tantrum. Your brother gets uncomfortable in hospitals. We're just trying to make it easier on him. I let out a bitter laugh that made my stitches ache. Easier on him? I'm the one with stitches in my stomach. The nurse quietly excused herself, clearly sensing the storm about to break. And as the door clicked shut, I realized I couldn't keep swallowing this anymore. For the first time in years, I was ready to say out loud what I'd been choking on my whole life. My laugh must have sounded unhinged, because Mom's eyes narrowed immediately. She set her purse down on the chair beside Ryan and whispered sharply, Daniel, lower your voice. You're upsetting your brother. That did it. Years of swallowed resentment burned up all at once, hotter than the pain in my gut. Upsetting him? I snapped, pushing myself up against the pillows. I just had surgery. I woke up alone, and you were off in the cafeteria making sure Ryan had soup that didn't taste like socks. Do you hear yourselves? Ryan rolled his eyes. Dude, chill. You're always so dramatic. I turned my head and glared at him. Dramatic? My appendix literally burst inside me, and you're mad about Wi-Fi speeds. Dad raised his hands like he was negotiating a hostage situation. Let's not make this a big deal. Ryan just doesn't handle stress like you do. You're stronger. You can take it. The words hit me like another scalpel, cutting deeper than the surgeon ever could. Stronger. Able to take it. That had been their excuse for everything. Every birthday overshadowed, every achievement ignored, every moment Ryan screwed up and got bailed out. Right. I said bitterly, my throat tightening. Because I don't need comfort. I don't need anyone sitting with me when I go under anesthesia. I don't need anyone here when I wake up scared and in pain. As long as Ryan is comfortable, nothing else matters, right? Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. Daniel, don't twist this. We love you both equally. Equally. I barked out a laugh, though it made my stomach throb. If this is equal, I'd hate to see what favoritism looks like. Ryan muttered. You sound jealous. That word, jealous, snapped something inside me. I'd never wanted to be him. I'd never wanted their blind indulgence. All I'd ever wanted was to be seen, just once, without being compared. I turned my eyes on my parents, my voice shaking now, not with fear but with years of bottled-up rage. You chose him over me. Over and over again. Tonight just made it impossible to ignore. I could have died, and your biggest concern was whether Ryan had soup and free Wi-Fi. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Mom shifted uncomfortably, Dad looked away, and Ryan slurped his soup loudly, like he was mocking the tension on purpose. That was when I realized something. Maybe I was still the patient lying in the hospital bed, stitched and sore, but this wasn't just about surgery. This was about my entire life, and whether I was going to keep playing the background character in it. I leaned back against the pillows, my breath shallow, my decision forming like a storm on the horizon. For the first time ever, I wasn't going to let it slide. The room stayed quiet for a moment, so quiet I could hear the steady beep of the heart monitor beside me. My words hung in the air like smoke, thick and suffocating. Finally, Mom sighed, crossing her arms. Daniel, you're exhausted. You just got out of surgery. You're not thinking straight. I let out a hollow laugh. No, Mom. For the first time in years, I am thinking straight. Dad rubbed his forehead, clearly irritated now. We didn't come here to argue. We came here to support you. I looked at Ryan, still shoveling soup into his mouth like this was just another Tuesday, and my chest burned hotter than the incision across my stomach. Support me, I said slowly. You supported him. You tucked him in with pillows, adjusted the thermostat, brought him food. And me. You left me unconscious and alone. Mom's voice sharpened. We didn't leave you alone. The doctors were here. Oh right, I shot back. Strangers in scrubs gave me more comfort than my own parents. Ryan slammed his spoon into the bowl, finally snapping. God, you're unbelievable. You act like the world's ending because you had some dumb surgery. People get appendectomies all the time, Daniel. It's not special. The words hit harder than any anesthetic haze. My mouth went dry. Not special. I whispered. You think lying on an operating table, not knowing if you'll wake up, is not special? Ryan smirked. Yeah. You're milking it. Classic you. My father leaned toward me, his voice low and stern. Daniel, don't talk to your brother like that. He's just trying to lighten the mood. Lighten the mood. That was always the excuse. Ryan could cut me down with a single sentence, and somehow, it was my job to swallow it with a smile. Something inside me snapped so violently, I almost felt it in my stitches. I sat up straighter, wincing against the pain. No. Not this time. He belittles me, you excuse him. He takes, you give. He mocks, you laugh. And me. I nearly die, and you're still bending over backwards to make sure he's comfortable. Mom's cheeks flushed red. Daniel, you're being ungrateful. Ungrateful. That word, sharp as broken glass, tore through me. I had begged for scraps of acknowledgement my entire life, and now, lying in a hospital bed, stitched together, they had the audacity to call me ungrateful. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. My voice came out calm, too calm. You know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe I should be grateful. Because tonight, you made one thing clear, clearer than it's ever been. Dad frowned. And what's that? That I was never your priority, I whispered. And I never will be. The silence that followed was louder than any monitor, sharper than any scalpel. Even Ryan didn't have a comeback this time. For once, they were all forced to sit in the truth I just laid bare. For a few seconds, no one moved. Mom's lips trembled like she wanted to argue, but even she seemed to realize there was no excuse big enough to cover the truth. Dad shifted uncomfortably, adjusting his tie even though we weren't at some fancy dinner. Ryan just leaned back in his chair, smirking like he'd already won. Finally, Mom broke the silence. Daniel, honey, that's not true. You've always been strong, responsible. We never had to worry about you. Her voice was soft, almost pleading, but it landed like a slap. We never had to worry about you. That was it. That was the whole explanation for a lifetime of being invisible. I laughed, bitter and sharp. So because I didn't make your life harder, I didn't matter? Dad scowled. Don't twist your mother's words. She meant you've always been independent. You don't need as much attention. Ryan finally spoke, his voice dripping with mockery. Translation, you're boring, dude. No drama, no excitement. That's why you get overlooked. He smirked wider. Meanwhile, I keep things interesting. I stared at him, stunned. Interesting? You call wasting everyone's time and sucking up every ounce of attention interesting? Hey, Ryan said, holding up his hands like he was the victim here. Don't hate me just because I'm the favorite. The room went silent again. He'd said it. Out loud. Bold. Shameless. Grinning. My parents froze. Mom's face drained of color, Dad's jaw tightened, but neither of them denied it. They didn't even try. I felt something inside me crumble and harden all at once. Years of small cuts had built to this moment, and Ryan's smug little grin was the knife that finished the job. You know what? I said quietly, my voice low but steady. Thank you, Ryan. At least you're honest. More honest than them. I jerked my chin toward our parents. They've been hiding behind excuses my whole life. You just confirmed what I already knew. Ryan shrugged. Glad I could help. Mom finally snapped, her voice sharp with panic. Ryan, that's not what we meant. But it was too late. The truth was already out, and no amount of frantic backpedaling could shove it back in. I leaned back against the pillows, my body trembling, not just from the surgery but from the sheer weight of it all. My parents stood frozen between denial and shame, and Ryan just went back to scrolling his phone, like detonating a bomb in my chest was just another casual Tuesday. For the first time, I realized something terrifying but liberating. I didn't have to wait for their approval anymore. Because it was never coming. The room was buzzing with silence, the kind that feels heavier than noise. My chest rose and fell slowly, each breath sharp against the stitches, but my mind was racing faster than my body could handle. Ryan hummed to himself, scrolling his phone like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just thrown gasoline on years of quiet pain. My parents hovered in that awkward stance of people who knew they should apologize but were too proud, or too scared, to say the words. I broke the silence. You know what's funny? My voice was calm, almost casual. This whole time, I thought maybe I was crazy. Maybe I was imagining the favoritism, the neglect, the constant feeling that I wasn't enough. But tonight, I shook my head, a hollow laugh spilling out. Tonight you all confirmed it. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Daniel, please don't say that. We love you. I met her gaze, steady and unflinching. You love the idea of me. The version of me that doesn't need you. The version that stays quiet while you pour everything into Ryan. That's not love. That's convenience. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. I turned my attention to Dad. And you? You've always treated me like the backup plan. The safety net. The one who'd be fine without anything, so why bother giving me anything? His jaw tightened, but he didn't deny it. He just stared at the floor. And Ryan, God, Ryan leaned back in his chair, arms behind his head, smiling like the king of some twisted throne. Man, you really needed anesthesia to grow a backbone, huh? I looked at him for a long moment, then let a small smile creep across my face. No, Ryan. I didn't grow a backbone tonight. I just stopped pretending I didn't have one. That wiped the grin off his face. For the first time, he looked unsure. I shifted carefully against the pillows, every movement a reminder of the pain I was in, but it didn't matter. Pain had always been my shadow. I was just finally acknowledging it. I'm getting discharged tomorrow, I said flatly. And when I walk out of this hospital, things are going to change. Dad frowned. What's that supposed to mean? It means, I said, my voice steady as steel, that you'll never get to treat me like the invisible sun again. I won't let you. For the first time all night, The room wasn't minefield quiet, it was scared quiet. My words didn't sound like a plea. They sounded like a promise. And judging by the look on Ryan's face, he knew I meant every word. The next morning, sunlight filtered weakly through the blinds, striping the hospital floor in pale gold. My stomach throbbed with every breath, but the ache felt different now, less like defeat, more like a reminder that I was still here. Still alive. The doctor came in early, clipboard in hand. "You did well, Daniel. The appendix was close to rupturing, but we got it out in time. You'll need rest, but you should be able to go home by this afternoon." Home. The word tasted bitter. Mom perked up immediately. "Wonderful. We'll make sure Ryan is comfortable while Daniel settles in." The doctor blinked at her, then glanced at me. His brows pulled together in a way that said everything without a word. "Seriously?" I smiled faintly at him. "Thanks, doctor. I'll handle it." When he left, I shifted upright, ignoring the pull of the stitches. "Actually," I said, voice calm but cutting, "I won't be going home with you." 3 pairs of eyes snapped toward me. "What do you mean?" Dad asked. "I mean," I said, looking right at Ryan before turning back to my parents, "I'm done. Done pretending this family is balanced. Done sitting in hospital beds alone while you fetch soup for him. Done being the strong, invisible one." Ryan scoffed. "So what, you're gonna cut us off? Dramatic much?" I tilted my head, studying him. "No, Ryan. Not dramatic. Just realistic. You wanted to be the center of attention your whole life? Congrats. You can have it. But you won't have me around to make the background look good anymore." Mom's voice cracked. "Daniel, please, you don't mean that." "I do," I interrupted, firm this time. "When I sign my discharge papers, I'm signing out of this family dynamic too. If you can only love Ryan by neglecting me, then I don't want that love." For once, Ryan's smirk faltered. Dad leaned forward, his voice low. "Daniel, don't be rash. Family is family." I met his eyes, sharp and unwavering. "No. Family is supposed to mean showing up when it matters. And last night, you showed me exactly where I stand. That's not family. That's favoritism." They stared at me, speechless, as I slowly slid my legs over the side of the bed, wincing but refusing to lie back down. Every movement hurt, but the pain felt like fuel. "This isn't just about surgery," I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my body. "It's about a lifetime of being invisible. And I'm finally done." For the first time in my life, the silence that followed wasn't suffocating. It was liberating. The twist wasn't that they'd chosen Ryan over me. The twist was that I was finally choosing myself. By the time the nurse returned with my discharge paperwork, I had already swung my legs off the bed, my bare feet pressed against the cold linoleum. Every movement pulled at the stitches in my abdomen, but I gritted my teeth and kept going. "Easy there," the nurse said gently, steadying my arm. "You'll want to take it slow." "I've been taking it slow my whole life," I muttered, surprising even myself with the weight in my voice. "Not anymore." Mom rushed to my side, her voice panicked. "Daniel, you can't just walk out. You need rest. Let us drive you home." I shook my head. "No. I'll figure it out." Dad stepped forward, his tone clipped, controlled. "Don't be ridiculous. You're weak. You can't do this alone." I met his gaze, the same way I had in 1,000 other moments where I'd swallowed my pride. "But not this time. I've been doing it alone for years. You just never noticed." That landed. His eyes flickered, but he said nothing. Ryan, of course, leaned back in his chair, smirking again like the king of comfort. Fine, go ahead. Be the martyr. You'll come crawling back. You always do. I grabbed the pen the nurse handed me and signed the discharge forms with a steady hand. No, Ryan. Not this time. The nurse slipped the clipboard back, then gave me a look that was equal parts pity and respect. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. I pulled my bag from the closet, wincing as I slung it over my shoulder. Mom reached out like she wanted to stop me, her voice trembling. Please, Daniel, don't do this. We'll make it up to you. We'll. I cut her off softly. You can't make up years in one day. And I'm done waiting for you to try. The hallway felt endless as I walked out, each step slow and aching, but somehow lighter than any step I'd taken in years. Behind me, I could hear Mom's muffled sobs, Dad's low voice trying to calm her, and Ryan's muttered, "Drama queen." But for the first time, I didn't turn back. I didn't owe them that anymore. Outside, the air was sharp and cool, stinging my lungs in a way that reminded me I was alive. More alive than I'd ever felt inside that family dynamic. The twist wasn't leaving the hospital. It was realizing I wasn't going to let them drag me back into their orbit ever again. And judging by the silence in my phone as I walked away, they were starting to realize it too. I didn't get far that day, just down the block, where a friend picked me up after I sent a shaky text from the hospital bench. The ride was quiet, the pain in my abdomen sharp, but the quiet wasn't the same kind I'd lived in for years. It wasn't loneliness. It was freedom. Over the next few days, the messages started. First, Mom, Daniel, please come home. We didn't mean it like that. Then Dad, you're overreacting. Don't throw away your family over one night. And finally Ryan, ever the golden child, lol, still being dramatic? Get over yourself. I didn't reply to any of them. Not because I was angry, though I was, but because I finally understood something vital. Their approval wasn't mine to chase anymore. I had spent nearly 3 decades waiting for them to notice me, to choose me, to see me. And in a twisted way, the hospital gave me exactly what I needed. Proof. Proof that I was invisible to them. Proof that Ryan's comfort outweighed my pain. Proof that nothing I did, no success, no sacrifice, would ever tilt the scales. And once you have proof, you can stop hoping. I rested, I healed, and slowly I began building a life outside of their shadow. A life where I didn't measure my worth by how much space they gave me at the table, or in the hospital room. It hurt. Of course it did. Family isn't supposed to choose convenience over care, comfort over compassion. But the pain became a teacher. It reminded me that blood isn't always thicker, it's just heavier. And sometimes, to survive, you have to put it down. Months later, I walked past a hospital on my way to a follow-up appointment. I paused, staring at the windows, thinking of that night. And instead of anger, I felt something else. Clarity. They hadn't chosen me. But I had chosen myself. And for the first time in my life, that was enough.